Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Mega Man Battle Network. I'm playing this through the Battle Network collection on the Nintendo Switch. As far as my history with the series goes, I do own a copy of Battle Network 3 white version for the Game Boy Advance, and so I had just assumed that all of the Battle Networks had two separate versions, but that actually isn't the case for the first and second Battle Network games. It is kind of weird playing this game on a bigger screen, just because I'm so used to playing this series on a tiny little Game Boy Advance screen. If you aren't familiar with the series, the combat is very unique in that anytime you encounter an enemy, you have a 3x6 grid where your enemies can navigate one half of that grid and you can navigate the other half. And you can utilize combat by activating these computer chips that give you different abilities. Most of them will be attacking enemies, but you can also use these support chips that will steal parts of the enemy's grid or destroy parts of that grid or heal yourself. How this one works is you get a set of 5 different chips, and if they are the same type of chip or they have the same letter attached to them, then you can use both of the chips for that round. After you've used up your chips, you kind of have to wait for this progress bar to refill in order to load in some more chips. Now you pick these chips out of a pool of 30 chips that you load to your character, similar to a card game, how you build your card deck. And obviously at the beginning, you are going to have some weaker chips that don't do too much damage, and then slowly unlock more and more powerful chips that you can then add to your library or your deck. When you are not utilizing these chips, or you are waiting for the ability to load more chips to Mega Man, you're equipped with a basic little pea shooter that just does like 1 damage at a time. You can find different upgrades in order to upgrade the shooter as well. It is pretty interesting playing the first game in the series after playing Mega Man Battle Network 3 so much more. So I get to see like the differences. They definitely have improved on the formula just in terms of like quality of life features. For instance, when you choose a chip in Battle Network 3, it will show you the other available chips that you can use. But in this one, you kind of have to scroll through all 5 of your chips in order to figure out if there are any other possibilities that you can also load up. I also like how in 3, you can unlock like different versions that power up your booster shot in different ways compared to this game where you just have to find various upgrades hidden throughout the area. Loading chips also works a little bit differently in this game compared to the one that I'm used to, because in this one you can choose to add another 5 extra chips for the next session of loading up your chips, if that makes sense, but then that extra 5 rows goes away, compared to in the third Battle Network where you can choose the chips that you want to basically sacrifice, but then you permanently unlock those additional slots for the rest of the combat. So there are just like some differences here, but overall they are pretty similar games. The idea is you play as a young boy named Lan, and you are equipped with a pet. This is basically like your Mega Man, your virtual Navi that is used to navigate the digital space. And so the idea is you can basically plug your pet into a lot of different kinds of appliances, or use your pet to navigate the web. And when you're online, you're basically playing as Mega Man instead of Lan. A lot of these areas that you plug into, or the internet, will have a bunch of random encounters, and that's probably, in my opinion, the weakest thing about this game are the many random encounters. Not to mention trying to navigate these areas. A lot of these areas that you're trying to navigate through are just complicated mazes with some light puzzle elements, and so I really would have appreciated some kind of map to tell me where I am and where I need to go, because you'll be trying to navigate these mazes and then you'll just be getting hit by these random encounters over and over again, and it kind of makes you lose track of where you're going, what you're trying to do, and so it's very easy to get lost. Fortunately for us, in the day of the internet, we have access to guides and maps and things like that. I would have rather preferred not to have to look through a third-party service in order to help me navigate these spaces, however. The good news about all these random encounters is you will be acquiring a lot of resources and potentially new powerful chips depending on how well you did during the combat, because after each encounter with an enemy, you will get graded from 1 to 10, and even better than 10 is an S. And so basically it's like, how many times did you get hit by the enemy? How quickly did you delete the viruses that you battled? And so if you get a grade S, you're probably going to get their chip, or at least a ton of money that you could use to potentially buy new powerful chips. There is some kind of hidden experience in this game where Mega Man will level up. I'm not sure exactly what leveling up does affect for Mega Man, because it doesn't make his shots stronger, and it doesn't make his chips stronger, and it also doesn't make his health pool stronger. So I'm not sure what leveling up Mega Man does, but at least you do get some kind of feeling of progression, even ignoring the prizes that you win after the battle. You will definitely want to upgrade Mega Man, though, in terms of like the chips that you have in your library, or you can find these upgrades that boost up your little shooter, your buster shot, and then you'll also find HP memory, which will increase your hit points. Now, after each encounter, Mega Man does heal automatically up to full health. I'm not sure if that's the case in Mega Man Battle Network 3. I guess I'll find out eventually. But you definitely want to collect as many of these upgrades as possible, because late game, the viruses hit really, really hard. I think by the end of the game, I had a little more than 500 hit points, and a single enemy attack is taking about 200 hit points away from you, depending on what kind of virus we're talking about here. So you'll definitely want to get really good at dodging enemy attacks. And just like other games, these enemies have like choreographed attacks, so as long as you're paying attention to the enemy that you're facing, you should be okay in avoiding these enemy target areas. This gets a lot more tricky when you're facing like 3 viruses compared to 1 virus though, because you're trying to avoid all 3 of their attacks. It's really the type of game where the best defense is a good offense, because you want to eliminate these viruses as soon as possible so you don't have to worry about avoiding their attacks. Not to mention, you will be getting so many random encounters that you'll want to take these guys down as quickly as possible, so then you can get back to navigating these complicated mazes. So it is in your best interest to explore all these nooks and crannies, plug into any electronic device that you possibly can, because there are potentially good upgrades through this exploration. Now, I remember in Battle Network 3, you could plug into pretty much anything that was electronic. It seems to be a lot more limited in the first game, where it is a select couple items that you can potentially plug into. As far as the story for this game, it is rather episodic in terms of like you go to these different chapters, and usually it's going to revolve around this organization called the WWW, and they are basically trying to take over the world by making something malfunction. And so, for example, there's an episode where the water treatment plant is like malfunctioning and freezing and things like that. And so you have to like plug into the water treatment system and try to delete the viruses. And you aren't just fighting viruses either. You will be fighting enemy Navis, like enemy characters such as like Iceman. And one of my complaints about this game is I wish there was more opportunities to fight other Navis. Now, you can go talk to your friends and battle their Navis, potentially get their chips, and there are many opportunities to rematch enemy bosses that you've already fought, especially if you know where to navigate. But I wish story-wise there were more of these encounters, because these boss fights are probably the most interesting thing about the combat system, in my opinion, compared to fighting the same viruses over and over again. And the special chips that you can get from defeating these bosses are also quite valuable as well, to the point where you can only have up to 5 of them in your chip deck, probably for the best, because they can be potentially very, very powerful. This collection also features achievements. That wasn't the case in the original games, as far as what I can remember. And I'm not like specifically like an achievement hunter or anything, but it is kind of nice seeing after you accomplish a challenge, seeing that little achievement pop up. Another thing that I really like about this collection in particular is you do have the option to turn on like a super powerful buster shot in case you are just sick of the multitude of random encounters and just want to get them over with. It basically makes it so your buster shot will automatically defeat like any enemy. And yeah, while this is probably seen as cheating, it is nice to just get these random encounters over with. I actually never really turned on this Max Buster Shot, but it was nice knowing that it was an option in case I did get to that point where I was just sick of the random encounters. Aside from navigating these complex mazes, I do wish that it was maybe a little more clear on where you're supposed to go or what you're supposed to interact with story-wise. Now, it does give you the option, like anytime you hit the left shoulder button, if you're playing as Lan, Mega Man will kind of tell you what you should be doing next, and then vice versa if you're playing as Mega Man. But sometimes these can range from, oh, we should go see what's going on the internet, and then that's pretty much it. And so you're basically trying to like wander around the internet, trying to interact with the correct thing or go to the specific area that they want you to go to. And so yeah, even though you constantly have that little person to talk to kind of try and nudge you in the right direction, I wish they were a little more specific with the directions on what exactly you're supposed to be doing at this moment. And that's not always the case. Sometimes they do say like, hey, let's go check out the school, and so you know where to go. But other times it is a little more vague than that. And just like my complaint about the mazes, we have access to guides to follow through. So it really isn't that big of a deal nowadays, but still, I'd prefer to do it all in-game if I have the ability to do so. As far as game length goes, there is a lot of side content that you could potentially delve into if you're trying to get like the best possible deck and you're trying to power up Mega Man with all the potential upgrades that you can find all over the place. But if you are just following a guide step by step, I could imagine it probably taking maybe 8 hours if you're just beelining for the main story. I kind of stopped and smelled the roses, explored a couple things, did some side content, so it took me 10 to 11 hours to beat this game, but there's a ton of extra content that you can do after you roll the credits as well, in case you wanted to go rematch any of those bosses or anything like that. And one of the cool things about this collection is it does have online multiplayer as well. I've never played it, but I assume it gives you the ability to battle your Mega Man against somebody else's Mega Man. I'm always hesitant to review these types of games that have been around for a decent amount of time. There's a larger audience that has grown up with these games and are very fond of it and are ready to defend it on the internet. For me personally though, I feel like this game, I like the idea of it a lot more than I actually like playing it. Like, the combat is unique enough to make me interested in it, but in terms of like exploring the net, I find it kind of boring because it is very grid based, and the only thing that ever really changes are the little puzzle mechanics and then the background gifts that repeat over and over again change. But other than that, I find navigating these places as Mega Man to be kind of boring and uninteresting, and the high random encounter rates can be rather frustrating after playing for a set amount of time. And as a 32-year-old man, I don't find the story as engaging as I would have liked, probably because it is more tailored to a teenager compared to somebody like me. But I don't know, I just feel like if the story's not hooking me and the gameplay isn't exactly hooking me, I don't find a lot of reasons to go back and play this game personally. And that's why, in my opinion, I think this game deserves a 2 out of 5. I don't think that it is a bad game, I just don't think that it's the one that's really hooking me. I'm also not swearing off the series. I do plan on eventually going back to Mega Man Battle Network 2. I'd like to play Mega Man Battle Network 3 Blue version, and then I believe there's a 4th version as well. So I would eventually like to go back to this series. I just don't know if the first one's exactly my type of game. Well guys, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Mega Man Battle Network, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye!